Well, hello everyone. This is a unique video for me. I've never done this before, and I'm hoping that it will be something fun for you all to do. I'm going to start a vinyl thread. Now, um, the reason that I guess the inspiration for this is because today, the day that I'm filming this, June 1st, 2021, it's the 50 oh gosh, I should have thought 54th anniversary of what many consider to be the greatest album of all time. And I apologize for the light. There we go. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. For years, Rolling Stone had this as the #1 greatest album. For many fans of the Beatles, this was the album. For many fans of just music in the 60s, this defined the summer of love in 1967. You know, I don't need to say anything about this album that hasn't already been said. The point of this video is not to talk about Sgt. Pepper, but rather to use it as a jumping point into this thread. One of the great aspects of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the incredible album cover, which of course has the Beatles in their regalia with artists, philosophers, athletes, actors, actresses that people that they would want to be at a Beatles concert. Well, to be at their show, I should say, because the Beatles are also on the album cover in wax figure form. So that got me to thinking, who would I want in my audience? And if I was to recreate this album cover, who would I want standing behind me as I pose for the picture? So and this isn't a contest or anything, it's just a thread. I want to see if people will, the snowball will start rolling. Who do I want behind me on my picture? Now, I guess the only rule that I'll give you all is it can't be the Beatles. So you can't, the Beatles already, they did that, and it's a Beatles thread, so don't put the Beatles. We all want the Beatles behind us, so that's a given. And I believe, actually I know, all but one of these artists that I'm about to show are going to be not on this album cover. I do have one artist who you might be able to guess that I would want behind me on my album cover. So if you're going to play along, I want you to choose 5 artists that you would want on your Sgt. Pepper album cover that aren't the Beatles or any of the solo Beatles. So I don't, no Paul, no John, no George, no Ringo, no Beatles. So that's the only rule. So anybody else, they can be people that are on the cover already, they can be modern, they can be old, they can be completely different genre, they can be actors, actresses, but for the sake of this being a music thread, mine are all going to be musical artists. So I will start with the one that you might be able to guess already, the one that's already on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. That would be #1 for me, well, 1 out of 5, Mr. Bob Dylan. I've got to put Bob Dylan on my album cover in my Sgt. Pepper pose because of just the incredible talent that he is, that was, but he still is. He's my musical hero. He would have to be on my Mount Rushmore of artists, and so he's definitely going to go on my Sgt. Pepper cover. And the Beatles had it right when they put him back there too. So #1, Bob Dylan. And these are in no particular order. This is just the stack of albums that I currently have in front of me. #2, this man right here, Brian Wilson. This is his solo debut from 1988. I knew it was 88, but I wanted to double check before I gave you false information. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, but more importantly, Brian Wilson of Brian Wilson. He is the mastermind behind the Beach Boys. He wrote the music, some lyrics, but mostly the music. He did almost all the producing in the early Beach Boys era. Well, for the most part, the first few albums not necessarily, but once he started getting his own creative juices flowing, the album Summer Days, and then also into, of course, Pet Sounds, and into the later '60s, then he started getting into drugs. Again, you know the story. This isn't a history lesson. Brian Wilson is just a creative genius. I love him to death. I love everything that he puts out. I try to grab. I'm not fully. I don't have all of his albums, but yeah, if anything comes out by Brian Wilson, I'm gonna pick it up. So number 2, Brian Wilson, and check out this album too. Number 3, Rest of the Soul, John Prine. And sorry for that glare. This is his last album that came out in 2018 called The Tree of Forgiveness. Again, just like Bob Dylan, he's just on my upper echelon of just like my top. He's in my top 5 favorite artists ever. You know, I would love for John Prine to be standing next to me on my Sgt. Pepper album cover. I've done videos on John Prine. You can go back and watch, but check out John Prine. Check out this last album. It's fantastic. The Tree of Forgiveness. Let's see here. That was number 3. Number 4. TP, Tom Petty. Again, Rest of the Soul. I miss him. His death probably affected me more than any other celebrity death. To have him, you know, on my Sgt. Pepper cover, you know, holding his Rickenbacker guitar, and with the hair, the top hat. I mean, that would be so cool. That would make a really cool album cover. I love Tom Petty. I've ranked his albums in the past, and you know, I think I've said this in the other video. He's the only artist that I know that doesn't, in my opinion, that does not have a bad song. I love every single one of his songs. I don't think any of them are terrible. You know, I think the Beatles have a bad song. Van Morrison has a bad song. Bob Dylan has bad songs. Tom Petty does not have a bad song. He is another level of songwriter. So Tom Petty, love him, love him, love him. Alrighty, that brings me to my number 5, and I just mentioned his name, so spoiler alert. Van the Man Morrison. This is his 1997 album, The Healing Game. This was the reissue that came out in 2019. If you want somebody who is a poet, who is a philosopher, who, you know, he's a rocker, but he's a jazz singer. He scats. He's a musician's musician. I mean, he can play guitar, saxophone, harmonica. His vocal inflections are an instrument themselves. Van Morrison. He's got to go on my album too, and it was a pretty easy 5 for me to pick. I try not to go with my top 5 favorite artists, but it's pretty close, minus the Beatles, who aren't allowed in this contest, in this thread. Yeah, so for my Sgt. Pepper album, Bobby, Brian the Mastermind Wilson, John Prine, Handsome Johnny, TP, Van the Man. So I'm excited to see what you all come up with. I hope this catches on. I would love to see this, you know, go out to infinity. Everybody, give me something. So yeah, listen to Sgt. Pepper too. It's the anniversary. So take care. I look forward to watching the videos.